This is a chapter from Flash Wisdom, a curated collection of mind-blowing, perspective-changing quotes edited by me, Russ Kick. This is the first chapter called Reality, Truth, and Other Such Things. It opens with a paraphrased quote from Niels Bohr. The opposite of a true statement is a false statement, but the opposite of a profound truth may well be another profound truth. From Anais Nin, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. From Douglas Adams, reality is frequently inaccurate. From Buckminster Fuller, since the initial publication of the chart of the electromagnetic spectrum, humans have learned that what they can touch, smell, see, and hear is less than 1/1,000,000th of reality. J.G. Bullard. Civilized life, you know, is based on a huge number of illusions in which we all collaborate willingly. The trouble is we forget after a while that they are illusions, and we are deeply shocked when reality is torn down around us. From René Magritte. Everything we see hides another thing. We always want to see what is hidden by what we see. From Gertrude Stein. Everybody gets so much information all day long that they lose their common sense. From Terence McKenna. A hallucination is a species of reality. From Albert Hoffman. Outside is pure energy and colorless substance. All of the rest happens through the mechanism of our senses. Our eyes see just a small fraction of the light in the world. It is a trick to make a colored world, which does not exist outside of human beings. From William Blake. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. From Novalis. We are more closely connected to the invisible than to the visible. From Lily Tomlin and Jane Wagner. Reality is nothing but a collective hunch. From William James. Our normal waking consciousness, rational consciousness as we call it, is but one special type of consciousness, whilst all about it, parted from it by the filmiest of screens, there lie potential forms of consciousness entirely different. We may go through life without suspecting their existence, but apply the requisite stimulus, and at a touch they are there in all their completeness. They forbid a premature closing of our accounts with reality. From Celia Green. It is inconceivable that anything should be existing. From Albert Hoffman. In studying the literature connected with my work, I became aware of the great universal significance of visionary experience. It plays a dominant role not only in mysticism and the history of religion, but also in the creative process in art, literature, and science. More recent investigations have shown that many persons who have visionary experiences in daily life, though most of us fail to recognize their meaning and value. Mystical experiences, like those that marked my childhood, are apparently far from rare. From Simone Weil. Attachment is the great fabricator of illusions. Reality can be attained only by someone who is detached. From Robert Moss. We need to take dreams more literally and waking life more symbolically. From Edmund White, who was paraphrasing and summarizing William S. Burroughs. Paranoia is having all the facts. From Eric Fromm. Our conscious motivations, ideas, and beliefs are a blend of false information, biases, irrational passions, rationalizations, prejudices, in which morsels of truth swim around and give the reassurance, albeit false, that the whole mixture is real and true. The thinking process attempts to organize this whole cesspool of illusions according to the laws of logic and plausibility. This level of consciousness is supposed to reflect reality. It is the map we use for organizing our life. From Lewis Mumford. What was once called the objective world is a sort of Rorschach inkblot into which each culture, each type of personality, reads a meaning only remotely derived from the shape and color of the blot itself. From Marilyn Robinson. Fact explains nothing. On the contrary, it is fact that requires explanation. From Jorge Luis Borges. Reality is not always probable or likely. From David Eagleman. Of course, sometimes it's quite difficult to know if you're hallucinating. You might hallucinate a silver pen on your desk right now and never suspect it's not real, because its presence is plausible. It's easy to spot a hallucination only when it's bizarre. For all we know, we hallucinate all the time. From Lao Tzu, adapted by Ray Grigg. Questions confine answers. When there are no longer questions, answers are no longer bound by them. From David Eagleman. The days of thinking of time as a river, evenly flowing, always advancing, are over. Time perception, just like vision, is a construction of the brain and is shockingly easy to manipulate experimentally. From Tom Wolfe, paraphrasing Ken Kesey. A person has all sorts of lags built into him. One, the most basic, is the sensory lag, the lag between the time your senses receive something and you are able to react. We are always acting on what just finished happening. It happened at least 1/30th of a second ago. We think we're in the present, but we aren't. The present we know is only a movie of what happened in the past. From Ezra Pound. The difference between a gun and a tree is a difference of tempo. The tree explodes every spring. From Gerard M. Edelman. Every act of perception is to some degree an act of creation, and every act of memory is to some degree an act of imagination. From Barbara Kingsolver. Memory is a complicated thing, a relative to truth, but not its twin. From Diane Ackerman. We tend to think of memories as monuments we once forged and may find intact beneath the weedy growth of years. But in a real sense, memories are tied to and describe the present. Formed in an idiosyncratic way when they happened, they're also true to the moment of recall, including how you feel, all you've experienced, and new values, passions, and vulnerability. One never steps into the same stream of consciousness twice. From John Muir. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. From Terence McKenna. All our previous positions are now exposed as absurd, but people don't draw the obvious conclusion. It must also mean then that our present situation is absurd. From Paul Eluard. There is another world, but it is in this one. From Stanislav Lek. All our separate fictions add up to joint reality. From Buckminster Fuller. Everything you've learned in school as obvious becomes less and less obvious as you begin to study the universe. For example, there are no solids in the universe. There's not even a suggestion of a solid. There are no absolute continuums. There are no surfaces. There are no straight lines. From John Gribben, summarizing Niels Bohr. Everything we call real is made of things that cannot be regarded as real. From Chuang Tzu. Once upon a time I, Chuang Tzu, dreamt I was a butterfly, fluttering hither and thither, to all intents and purposes a butterfly. I was conscious only of my happiness as a butterfly, unaware that I was Tzu. Soon I awaked, and there I was, veritably myself again. Now I do not know whether I was then a man dreaming I was a butterfly, or whether I am now a butterfly dreaming I am a man. From Ben Okri. Beware the stories you read or tell. Subtly, at night, beneath the waters of consciousness, they are altering your world. From J.G. Bullard. The media landscape of the present day is a map in search of a territory. From David Foster Wallace. A huge percentage of the stuff that I tend to be automatically certain of is, it turns out, totally wrong and deluded. From George Wald, a physicist is an atom's way of knowing about atoms. From Arthur Koestler, Einstein's space is no closer to reality than Van Gogh's sky. The glory of science is not in a truth more absolute than the truth of Bach or Tolstoy, but in the act of creation itself. The scientist's discoveries impose his own order on chaos, as the composer or painter imposes his, in order that always refers to limited aspects of reality, and is based on the observer's frame of reference, which differs from period to period as a Rembrandt nude differs from a nude by Manet. From Albert Einstein, I think that only daring speculation can lead us further, and not accumulation of facts. From Stephen Jay Gould, orthodoxy can be as stubborn in science as in religion. I do not know how to shake it except by vigorous imagination that inspires unconventional work and contains within itself an elevated potential for inspired error. As the great Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto wrote, "Give me a fruitful error any time, full of seeds, bursting with its own corrections. You can keep your sterile truth for yourself." Not to mention a man named Thomas Henry Huxley, who, when not in the throes of grief or the wars of parson hunting, argued that, quote, irrationally held truths may be more harmful than reasoned errors. From Elbert Hubbard, the supernatural is the natural not yet understood. From Bill Bryson, when you sit in a chair, you are not actually sitting there, but levitating above it at a height of 1 angstrom, 100 millionth of a centimeter, your electrons and its electrons implacably opposed to any closer intimacy. G.K. Chesterton, briefly, you can only find truth with logic if you have already found truth without it. From John Cage, I can't understand why people are frightened of new ideas. I'm frightened of the old ones. From Hesse, there's no reality except the one contained within us. That's why so many people live an unreal life. They take images outside them for reality and never allow the world within them to assert itself. From Kafka, you do not need to leave your room. Remain sitting at your table and listen. Do not even listen, simply wait. Be quiet, still, and solitary. The world will freely offer itself to you to be unmasked. It has no choice. It will roll in ecstasy at your feet. From Byron Katie, don't believe everything you think. From T.H. Huxley, it is the customary fate of new truths to begin as heresies and end as superstitions. From André Gide, believe those who are seeking the truth, doubt those who find it. From Robert Frost, why abandon a belief merely because it ceases to be true? Cling to it long enough, and not a doubt it will turn true again, for so it goes. Most of the change we think we see in life is due to truths being in and out of favor. From Aldous Huxley, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you mad. From David Eagleman, your brain, after all, is encased in darkness and silence in the vault of the skull. Its only contact with the outside world is via the electrical signals exiting and entering along the superhighways of nerve bundles. Because different types of sensory information, hearing, seeing, touch, and so on, are processed at different speeds by different neural architectures, your brain faces an enormous challenge. What is the best story that can be constructed about the outside world? From Tom Robbins, our brains permit us to use such a wee fraction of their resources that, in a sense, everything we experience is a reduction. We employ drugs, yoga techniques, and poetics, and 1,000 more clumsy methods, in an effort just to bring things back up to normal. Brene Brown, it's in our biology to trust what we see with our eyes. This makes living in a carefully edited, overproduced, and photoshopped world very dangerous. From Maria Konnikova, according to the psychologist Robert Feldman, who has spent more than 4 decades studying the phenomenon, we lie, on average, 3 times during a routine 10-minute conversation with a stranger or casual acquaintance. A Yugoslavian proverb: tell the truth and run. From Alexander Chase: all generalizations are false, including this one. From Robert M. Persig: the truth knocks on the door and you say, "Go away, I'm looking for the truth," and so it goes away. Puzzling. From Susan Sontag: I really believe in history, and that's something people don't believe in anymore. I know that what we do and think is a historical creation. I have very few beliefs, but this is certainly a real belief, that most everything we think of as natural is historical and has roots, specifically in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, the so-called Romantic Revolutionary period, and we're essentially still dealing with expectations and feelings that were formulated at that time, like ideas about happiness, individuality, radical social change, and pleasure. We were given a vocabulary that came into existence at a particular historical moment. From John Keats: I never can feel certain of any truth but from a clear perception of its beauty. From Nietzsche: facts do not exist, only interpretations. From George Saunders: humor is what happens when we're told the truth quicker and more directly than we're used to. Emily Dickinson: tell all the truth, but tell it slant. From Flannery O'Connor: the truth does not change according to our ability to stomach it. From Dostoevsky: how many ideas have there been in the history of the human race that were unthinkable 10 years before they appeared? From Oscar Wilde: man is least himself when he talks in his own person. Give him a mask, and he will tell you the truth. From J. Krishnamurti: truth is a pathless land.